The morning rush at Creston Industries was always a storm of heels, coffee cups, and tension. The marble lobby echoed with conversations about sales, deadlines, and market shares. Everyone wore ambition like armour, sharp suits, sharper words. Everyone except Thomas Reed. Thomas was the janitor, a quiet man in his 50s with kind eyes, a faded uniform, and calloused hands that had cleaned those same marble floors for nearly 20 years. He didn't say much. He didn't need to. He noticed everything. Every morning he arrived before sunrise, humming softly while pushing his mop bucket across the gleaming floor. Most people never looked at him twice, but he watched them, the way they rushed, the way they ignored each other, the way the company's heartbeats seemed to grow colder each year. That Monday morning, Jacob Sterling, the CEO, was giving a speech in the lobby to his senior team. He was tall, confident, perfectly groomed, the kind of man who lived in the headlines. His voice carried like a sermon. "Team," he said, raising a hand. "Our productivity is down 8%. Our efficiency metrics are unacceptable. We are bleeding money because someone in this company isn't doing their job." The executives nodded, murmuring in agreement. Just then, Thomas wheeled his mop across the back of the lobby, trying not to interrupt. Jacob caught sight of him and smirked. Case in point. The crowd turned. "Mr. Reed," Jacob said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "you've been here what, 20 years? I hope you've at least found a faster way to mop by now." Laughter rippled through the crowd. Thomas froze. His face turned red, but he didn't respond. He just kept mopping. Jacob, pleased with his own joke, continued his speech as if nothing had happened. "Some people are replaceable," he said. "Let's make sure it's not us." Later that morning, Thomas was cleaning the conference room when he overheard two executives talking. "I swear," one of them said, "half our losses come from wasted supply shipments. Wrong parts, wrong orders, delays. The logistics system is a mess." Thomas paused, his mop mid-air. A logistics problem. He knew about that, more than they realized. For years, he'd watched workers complain about missing packages, wrong labels, and broken scanners. He'd fixed more than one on his own just to keep things moving. He'd even spent his nights reading manuals and tinkering with spare equipment in the janitor's closet. He didn't have a degree, but he had something the boardroom lacked: common sense and observation. That night, after everyone left, Thomas stayed behind. He sat in the quiet maintenance office surrounded by cleaning supplies and spare parts, sketching out an idea on a scrap of paper. It wasn't fancy, just a plan, a simple, low-cost system that could track inventory and shipment movement through color-coded scanning, something even the newest employees could understand. He smiled faintly, the fluorescent light buzzing overhead. "Maybe this old mop can still make things shine," he muttered. He tucked the drawing into his bag and went home, unaware that this single idea would soon turn the company upside down and make the man everyone laughed at the one person who could save them all. For the next few days, Thomas Reed went about his routine like nothing had happened. He mopped the floors, polished the brass, emptied the trash, the same quiet rhythm he'd followed for years. But inside, something had changed. The humiliation from the lobby lingered, but it didn't crush him. It fueled him. Every insult, every dismissive glance, every laugh at his expense, it all burned in his mind, forging a single thought that refused to fade. If I can fix this place once, they'll never laugh again. At home, Thomas turned his small garage into a workshop. The walls were lined with shelves of spare wiring, circuit boards, and discarded office tech he'd repaired over the years. On the workbench sat an old laptop, its screen cracked but functional. He spread out his sketches, notes scribbled on scrap paper, cardboard, even the back of an old cleaning schedule. Coloured arrows connected boxes labelled inventory, orders, maintenance, tracking, reports. The idea was simple but revolutionary. A unified system where every tool, shipment, and supply chain step could be logged, tracked, and analysed automatically. No more missing materials. No more delays. It would save thousands in wasted time and millions in errors. But he needed to prove it worked. Over the next 2 weeks, Thomas worked nights. When the offices emptied and the echo of his mop faded, he'd slip into the storage room, his lab. He used the company's old scanners, reprogrammed inventory tablets, and a few cheap microchips from an online order. He called it STEP, Smart Tracking and Efficiency Protocol. By the end of the month, he had a working prototype. The system automatically scanned every shipment entering or leaving the supply dock, matched it to an order, and sent real-time alerts to managers' emails. Thomas tested it quietly, logging each delivery after hours. Within days, he noticed something huge. Dozens of mislabeled shipments the system flagged instantly. "Would you look at that?" he muttered, smiling to himself. "A janitor who knows where everything's going." One night, as he was finishing up, the freight elevator opened, and in stepped Sophie Tran, a young IT intern who often worked late. "Mr. Reed," she said, startled. "What are you doing in here?" Thomas froze for a moment, then sighed. "Guess you could say I'm cleaning up a different kind of mess." Sophie walked closer, noticing the screen full of data logs. "Wait, did you build this?" He nodded. "It's just something to help track supplies. I didn't mean to break any rules." She shook her head, amazed. "This is brilliant. You're basically automating their logistics in real time." Thomas chuckled. "Yeah, but the only automation they expect from me is a floor polisher." Sophie laughed. "Sophie, you know, if you let me help you polish this up, we could show it to operations." Quietly, Thomas hesitated. "You really think they'd listen to a janitor and an intern?" Sophie grinned. "No, but they'll listen to results." For the next week, they worked in secret. Sophie cleaned up the interface while Thomas optimized the scanners and refined the alerts. Together, they turned a set of scrap parts into a working prototype that could revolutionize the company's workflow. Then came the real test. Thomas connected STEP to the internal network, just a small portion of it, and within hours, the system caught 3 missing shipments and a double order that accounting hadn't noticed. The next morning, chaos erupted in the supply division. Managers scrambled, trying to figure out how an unknown program had flagged the mistakes before they even knew about them. "Where did this come from?" one of them demanded. Sophie quietly slipped Thomas a knowing smile as she replied, "I think you'll want to ask the janitor." By the end of that day, word had reached the top floor. Jacob Sterling, the CEO who'd mocked Thomas just weeks ago, summoned the department heads. "Find out who's behind this STEP program," he said. "If it's an outside consultant, hire them. If it's an employee, promote them." He didn't know the truth yet, but soon he'd realized that the man cleaning his office every morning was the same one who had just saved his company millions. And when that happened, the real cleanup would begin, not of flaws, but of pride. By Monday morning, Creston Industries was buzzing. Emails flew back and forth, department heads argued in glass-walled offices, and everyone wanted to know one thing: who built STEP? It had already saved the company tens of thousands of dollars in mismanaged inventory and exposed inefficiencies they didn't even know existed. It was fast, it was smart, it was unlike anything their multi-million-dollar software contracts had ever delivered, and nobody knew who made it. Upstairs in his corner office, Jacob Sterling, the CEO, stared at his screen. The reports were astonishing. Productivity up 12%, losses cut in half, supply errors down 80%. He leaned back in his leather chair and muttered, "Whoever made this is a genius." Then, with a smirk, "And I'm going to hire them before someone else does." He buzzed his assistant. "Emily, get it up here. I want to know who developed this STP system by noon." "Yes, sir." Downstairs, Thomas Reed was polishing the brass railing when he overheard 2 managers in the hall. "Sterling's on a manhunt," one whispered. "He's obsessed with finding whoever built that program." "Yeah," the other said. He even told legal to prepare a new contract. If it's someone internal, he wants them in R&D, immediately. Thomas's grip tightened on the rag. He had no intention of getting promoted. He didn't even want recognition, not after what happened in the lobby. He just wanted the system to work. For the company, for the people who actually kept it running. But Sophie, the intern, had other plans. At lunch, she found him in the maintenance room, refilling the mop bucket. "They're looking for you," she said quietly. "I know," he said without turning. "So what are you going to do?" "Keep my head down. Finish my shift." Sophie crossed her arms. "Mr. Reed, this isn't just about you. They need your system. You fixed what no one else could. If you don't speak up, someone else will take the credit." Thomas smiled faintly. "Let them. I didn't do it for credit." Sophie frowned. "Then do it for me. For everyone here who actually works hard and never gets seen. You built something incredible, and they need to see that it came from someone like you." He hesitated. Her words stung with truth. All his life, he'd been invisible, reliable, unremarkable, overlooked. Maybe it was time to change that. That afternoon, the IT team presented their findings to Jacob. "Sir, we traced the origin of the program to the maintenance network," said the head of IT. Jacob frowned. "Maintenance? You mean a sub-department of operations?" The technician hesitated. "Not exactly. It came from the janitorial system login." Jacob raised an eyebrow. "Excuse me?" "Sir," the technician continued, "the user ID is registered to Thomas Reed, janitorial staff." The room fell silent. Jacob blinked, certain he'd misheard. "The janitor?" "Yes, sir." For a long moment, Jacob just sat there, stunned. Then he let out a short, incredulous laugh. "You're telling me the man who cleans my floors is the one who built the system saving this company?" "Yes," said the technician. "And, frankly, sir, it's brilliant code." That evening, Thomas was scrubbing a spill in the hallway when two security guards approached him. "Mr. Reed," one asked. He straightened, startled. "Yes?" "Mr. Sterling would like to see you in his office." Thomas froze. "Now?" "Now." The elevator ride to the top floor felt like an eternity. When the doors opened, he stepped into a space that looked more like a luxury suite than an office. Glass walls, city skyline, and at the center, Jacob Sterling leaning against his desk. "Mr. Reed," Jacob said with a practiced smile, "please, come in." Thomas wiped his hands on his uniform and stepped forward. "Yes, sir." Jacob studied him for a moment, almost amused. "I'll be honest, Reed. When I heard our janitor was behind the most efficient system this company's ever had, I thought it was a joke." Thomas didn't flinch. "I get that a lot." Jacob chuckled, pacing. "But it's not a joke. It's brilliant. And it's going to save us millions. So tell me," he leaned closer, eyes sharp, "how did you do it?" Thomas met his gaze steadily. "By watching what everyone else ignored." The room went quiet. Jacob's smile faded. "You understand what this means, right? You've just changed the game. You could head R&D. I could triple your salary overnight." Thomas's expression stayed calm. "With all due respect, sir, I didn't do it for money. I did it because people down there, the ones who actually make things work, are tired of being blamed for problems that start at the top." Jacob blinked, caught off guard. "Excuse me?" "You said we were losing money because someone wasn't doing their job," Thomas said quietly. Turns out it wasn't the janitors. For the first time, the CEO had no answer. Finally, Jacob sighed, rubbing his temple. "You know, Reed, I may have underestimated you." Thomas smiled faintly. "You and everyone else." Jacob nodded slowly, almost in admiration. "You just cost me a little pride and earned yourself a promotion. Starting tomorrow, you'll be part of the operations board. Report directly to me." Thomas hesitated. "Only if I can bring Sophie Tran with me. She helped make it happen." Jacob grinned. "Done. Looks like the janitor just became my best engineer." As Thomas rode the elevator back down that night, he looked at his reflection in the mirrored wall. The same uniform, the same calloused hands, but something new in his eyes. Confidence. He smiled to himself. Guess the floor's not the only thing that got polished today. By the next week, Creston Industries was celebrating. The miracle system, as employees were calling it, had doubled efficiency in nearly every department. Shipping was on time, costs were down, and for once, the CEO, Jacob Sterling, didn't start meetings by yelling. At least, not yet. Because success in a company like Creston came with one dangerous expectation: more success. On Wednesday morning, the senior board gathered in the glass conference room overlooking downtown Manhattan. Jacob sat at the head of the table, Thomas Reed now seated quietly to his right, his janitor's uniform replaced by a modest dress shirt and ID badge labelled Operations Development. Next to him sat Sophie Tran, nervous but proud, a tablet glowing with data charts. The executives stared at the unlikely pair like they'd walked in from another planet. Jacob began. "Ladies and gentlemen, thanks to STEP, we've recovered over $2 million in efficiency losses, but the shareholders want results at scale, so..." He looked at Thomas. "We're expanding the system company-wide, effective immediately." A murmur of surprise spread through the room. Daniels, the operations director, frowned. "With all due respect, sir, we haven't stress-tested it under full load. If something breaks..." Jacob interrupted, voice sharp. "Then fix it. That's why we have Mr. Reed here." The room went quiet. Daniel's jaw tightened. "Mr. Reed," he said slowly, "you were maintenance staff until recently, correct?" Thomas nodded calmly. "That's right." Daniels leaned back, his tone dripping condescension. "Then I assume you're not aware of how fragile our infrastructure really is. One bad data loop and this company could lose millions overnight." Sophie's fingers tightened on her tablet. "With respect, Mr. Daniels, STEP doesn't crash. It learns. Every scan builds a predictive model. It prevents those errors before they happen." Daniels smirked. "And how would an intern and a janitor know that?" Before Sophie could respond, Jacob's voice cut through the tension. "Because it's already proven it. End of discussion." But within 48 hours, the pressure test began. The company's biggest client, Marlin Tech Logistics, sent an emergency order worth millions. If Creston failed to deliver on time, they'd lose their largest contract. Jacob stormed into the operations floor. "Reed, I need that order processed by midnight. If STEP is as good as you claim, prove it." Thomas and Sophie exchanged a look. "We'll make it happen," Thomas said. By evening, the floor buzzed like a hive. Scanners beeped, forklifts moved crates, and screens glowed with data streaming through STEP. Everything worked until 9:43 p.m. A flashing red alert lit up Sophie's screen. "Network overload. Data loop detected." Her heart dropped. "Oh no!" Thomas rushed over. "Talk to me." "The server's bottlenecking. It's processing double entries from the regional hub." "Can you isolate it?" "Trying, but if I shut it down, we lose everything in progress." Jacob appeared behind them, furious. "What the hell is happening?" Thomas took a breath. "The system's trying to fix something that was already broken, sir. It's not a bug. It's the company's data. Your last inventory merge was corrupt." Jacob slammed his hand on the desk. "I don't care. Fix it." Sophie's fingers flew across the keyboard. "If we reroute the network through the local node, it might stabilize." Thomas shook his head. "No, that'll overload the backup. We have to split the stream manually." "Manually?" Jacob barked. "That's insane." Thomas looked up calmly. "So is trusting a janitor to run your company, sir. But here we are." For a second, Jacob almost smiled. Almost. "Fine, do it your way." The next 10 minutes were chaos. Thomas worked from memory, patching lines of code Sophie had written, rebalancing servers one at a time. The old janitor's hands that once scrubbed floors now flew over the keyboard with steady precision. Finally, the red alert turned green. The network stabilized. The system hummed back to life. Data flowed again. Clean, synchronized, perfect. Sophie exhaled shakily. "We're back online." Jacob stared at the screen, speechless. Then the phone rang. He answered, listened, and slowly broke into a smile. "Marlintech just confirmed delivery. We pulled it off." Applause erupted from the floor. Jacob turned to Thomas. "I don't know how you did it, Reed, but you just saved us again." Thomas smiled quietly. "Just cleaning up another mess, sir." Later that night, when the office emptied, Thomas stood by the window overlooking the city lights. Sophie joined him, holding 2 cups of cheap vending machine coffee. "Still think you don't belong here?" she asked. He smiled. "I belong wherever I can make a difference." Sophie nodded. "You know, they're saying the board wants to rename the system." He raised an eyebrow. "To what?" She grinned. "REED. Real-time efficiency and error detection." Thomas laughed softly. "Guess the janitor finally left his mark."